everyone, welcome back to the Mystic in the Woods. I'm Kate, and today we are going to do my top 10 mass market decks of all time as of, the beginning of 2024. So this is an updated list because I did this list about a year ago, and I wanted to redo it because it's actually changed quite a bit since I did that first top 10 mass market deck list. I am planning just a top 10 deck list, but I was kind of waiting to see how a few of the newer decks in my collection were sitting before I do that list. But let's get started. So these are just the top 10 mass market decks, right? If I could only keep 10 of my mass market decks, which ones would I keep? Now, some of these decks are the same as the first time I did this list, and some of them are new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to the first video down below, as well as any deck reviews that apply will also be down below. So let's just start at the beginning. We're going to get the Hush Tarot out of the way. I still love the Hush Tarot. It is still one of my favorite decks of all time. It is one of only 2 tarot decks on this collection. It was on the first top 10 mass market deck list. I have a full review if you want to hear me talk about what I love about it and the couple complaints I have, what I use it for, that type of thing. This is one of my top tarot decks of all time. It still is. I was just thinking about this the other day. If I could only keep 3 tarot decks, which ones would I keep? Like in preparation for a top 10, only 10 deck list. And this is absolutely one of my favorite tarot decks. So I won't talk too much about it, but I love the color palette. I love the earthiness of it. It's a very versatile deck. It does take time to get to know. It's not a deck I could read right out of the box. It took me quite a bit of time to really get to know it. But that is the Hush Tarot, still on the list. Also still on the list, Tarot of the Abyss. This is still my other favorite, top two favorite mass market tarot decks. Still on the list, was on the list last time, and I have a full review of it on the channel if you want to hear me talk more and more and more about it. I am not sure if this is going to make the top 10 deck list, which is surprising because I think it made my top 10 tarot decks, and I'm not sure it would make that list now, but we'd have to see. Anyway, you can hear me talk about this one in the full review and in the first top 10 mass market deck list. But this is an exceptionally versatile deck, very easy to read, very versatile. I love using it when I read for other people. Still on the list. Now, the first change to the list is that I have taken off the Herbiary and Beastiary Oracle. Now, even just saying that, it's a real big deck when I combined them. Just saying that actually makes me a little bit bummed because I couldn't actually imagine letting this one go out of my collection. But there are too many other decks here that I would not want to get rid of. And so I would let this go. Now, I would let this go. So this is the Herbiary and the Beastiary combined. And I talked about this more in the first installment of this. So the 2023 edition of mass market decks. Is because the Woodland Warden is still on my deck list. Or this deck list. And while the artwork in these 2 decks is a little bit more intuitive for me personally, I prefer the artwork in Woodland Wardens, and it does everything that the Herbiary and Beastiary combo can do with an aesthetic I like a little bit more, in a deck that's easier to handle, and it also has journal prompts in it. It pairs so well with all my other tarot decks, all my other oracle decks. And this one I use a lot when I'm reading for other people inside of a shadow work session. Or inside of a group circle or whatever it is. I use this deck a lot in those situations. And it really does provide very quick clarity with the keywords, and it also has the animal and the plants if you want to bring that into your reading. So this is, of course, a very popular deck in the community for good reason. So they were both on my list last time, but now Woodland Wardens has actually kicked it off. So this Herbiary Beastiary combo is out. Now, let's just talk about this one quick. This is the Soul Cards 1. This was on my list the first time around, and it's on my list again now. This one and the Illuminated Earth Oracle are 2 of my most intuitive decks in that they can really bring an intuitive feeling into a reading. And I think that this deck is too unique, too powerful, and also just so versatile once you get to know it and you kind of figure out how it's going to work for you. It was not an easy deck for me to read at first. I couldn't read with this deck until I was a more advanced reader. That's just me. But this is still on my top 10 mass market decks list. It was on my first one as well, so you can watch that video to hear me talk more about it. Now, let's talk about another one that got kicked off. Okay. So first, the deck leaving the list is the Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud. I still love this deck, and kind of like the Herbiary and Beastiary, like just saying that it's not on the list anymore kind of makes me bummed. But the Magical Botanical Oracle has really taken its place for me in my collection. So this was on my top 10 Oracle deck list. So you can hear me talk about it there. You can also hear me talk about it in my decks for shadow work and connecting with beings of the divine darkness. As I've said before, this deck feels like the underworld to me. I love the guidebook. I love the messages. It really has brought... I don't even really know. All I know is that what I used to reach for the Fairies Oracle for, I now reach for Magical Botanical instead, and I use it for other things. So in my most used decks of 2023, I think this was on that list too. This has basically been on my desk, and it has not left my desk since I purchased it. It has been sitting on this desk for helping me to create content, helping me to do daily draws for myself, helping me to understand, my own shadow work. I don't think it's limited to shadow work by any stretch of the imagination. So this one has kicked the Brian Froud Fairies Oracle off the list. Now, the next deck that has been removed from the list is Alana Fairchild's Sacred Rebels. And I now have no Alana Fairchild deck on this list. And I still love this deck. I still think it's beautiful. I still think it's very powerful. However, when I sat down to put this deck list together, there was a different deck on it there's another new deck on the list. And also I have realized that I use these two decks instead. So this is the Soul Mirrors Oracle, and this is the Archetypes deck by Kim Kranz. So this is the Soul Mirrors Oracle. And I have not had this deck very long, so this was kind of a risk to put on a list like this. However, I have been using it to understand what I am supposed to be learning from any given situation. So this says potential, confined or infinite. Search, internal or external. Cycle, regressed, evolved. So each keyword, it has the keyword like destiny here, and then it has I can't remember how she calls them in the guidebook, but there's the one where you're fear-based and the one where you're more expansive. So past or future focused, or are you present focused? And this deck has really been helping me to see where in my life I am moving through something and how I can move through it with more grace and understanding. Whether that be on a spiritual path focus, whether that be on a mundane life focus, relationship focus, shadow work focus. I use this deck a lot, and I have not yet brought it into my shadow sessions with clients. I think I will probably be bringing it this weekend, though, when we do the Shadow Work with Deity Masterclass. The link is below. I think I'm posting this on Saturday, so there's probably still a couple of spots left. I'll probably be bringing it into that. So this deck, though, I love it. It's got the beautiful gold edging. I love the backing. I like the artwork. I don't use the guidebook a ton. I mostly read this intuitively, but it definitely takes the place of Sacred Rebels for me. And it has become a really important deck for personal work for me. And I think that as I start to use it more for clients, I'm probably going to need a second copy. So that is an interesting place to be with the deck. Now, also is the Archetypes deck. Now, I filmed a preliminary review of this like a few weeks ago, and I forgot to post it. So I'm posting that at the same time as this video. So I really resisted buying this deck. I really didn't want to love it. I bought it, sure, I wouldn't like it, and I would end up gifting it, but I wanted to give it a fair shot anyway. I talk all about that in the review. And this is also a newer deck, so again, a little risky to put on a list like this. But again, the versatility of this deck, the accuracy, the way I'm going to be able to bring this in when I'm working with others once I know it a little bit better, I think that there is no substitute for it in my collection. So like the Mystical Shaman Oracle was a runner-up on the last deck list of this. This would replace that as well for me. It's all about archetypes. The guidebook is great. You can hear me talk more about this in the review, so I will make sure that link is below, but I'm going to post it on the same day as I post this video. So this deck also is helping to know what you're moving through on your path, what archetypes you're engaging with, what thresholds you're standing on, and initiations you're looking at and moving through. It's a really great... If you're new to archetypes, I think you can still use this deck. And it's a really great introduction to archetypes and how powerful they can be on your path and in your own work. And it's a great deck for journaling with. So like this says the crone. So we have all these different archetypes. The hunter, the threshold. So anyway... This is probably going to be on my top 10 deck list as well. We'll see. So that is this deck. The preliminary review is available for you to watch if you want to hear me talk more about it. Now, let's just get this one out of the way. Divine Feminine Oracle. I won't even open it and flip through it for you. Still on my top 10 list. Still love it. I don't use this one quite as much now that I have the Soul Mirrors Oracle. But I am still using the Divine Feminine Oracle. I still would refuse to part with it. Full review is below, as well as I talked about it in the first edition of Mass Market Top 10 list, right? So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 9. Okay, so far we have Hush Tarot, Tarot of the Abyss, Magical Botanical, and Woodland Wardens, Soul Mirrors, Soul Cards, very different decks, the Divine Feminine Oracle, and the Archetype Cards, so that's 8. So then I have 2 more decks, and the first one is a Lantern Oracle, so this is also new to this list. This is a new edition. Since I made that first video, my first top 10 mass market decks list, shadow work has become a far more important part of my personal practice and a far more important piece of what I do when I work with other people. I almost never do one-off tarot readings anymore. I'm usually working with people inside of shadow work mentorships or that type of container, or like a group container for shadow work, like Reclaiming Eve is starting in February. And so as I have been doing more and more shadow work, which you don't need a shadow work focused deck for, of course, this one came into my collection. And as far as mass market decks are concerned, this is a fantastic shadow work deck. And the other shadow work decks that people recommend a lot, like there's like Dark Mirror or Black Mirror or something, and there's like Mausolea Oracle of Souls, and there's some of Lucy Cavendish's decks. I prefer this one. I like the artwork. I like the messages. I just prefer this one. I find it to be really accurate, really helpful, and really honest and upfront, but not blunt or forcing. It also doesn't force you to look at things you don't want to look at. It's willing to go as deep as you're ready to go. And so I do really like the Lantern Oracle for shadow work decks. Okay, and then the final deck that is now on the top 10 mass market decks is this one. Let me see. Aha. It is this deck. I am going to leave the link below. Yggdrasil Norse Divination cards. It's a Llewellyn deck. And this is so Divination and the 9 Worlds of Nordic Lore. This deck has the different, it's a little bit hard to see because the artwork is so detailed and like fine. This has all of, I don't know about all, but it is exclusively Norse myths, gods, figures, things like that. So this is Sin, and then it says Opportunity. And I can't pronounce all of these, so I won't. But this deck also in my collection is very, very unique. And it allows you to do a couple of different things, in my opinion. You can certainly use it to work with or get to know these different myths and stories and figures. But it also has more general messages as well, and it has some really good guide, or like here's Scotty, and I don't know how you say that for sure, but Ambition, The Hunt. The guidebook also has more general messages. And so as I have started to finally work with this deck a little bit more, I'm finding it to be a little bit more versatile than you might think. So like let's just look at this real quick. So like this is Thor. I opened it to Thor's page. Strength, fertility, protection. Then it gives a little bit about like who Thor is. His placement is strong in Midgard. I think that's what that says. In the spread, his placement is equally strong in the 3 worlds. It has a specific spread you can use with the Yggdrasil tree. And then it also kind of has like a when he comes up in the spread. So it's not too overwhelming either. So like for Thor, like you have the reproduction, a paragraph, and then a little bit more. So really, while this is not like one of my top go-to decks where like I use the Archetype cards I'm using all the time right now, or like Magical Botanical that I haven't even put away since I purchased it, the Hush Tarot, which is like my favorite tarot deck of all time. This doesn't get used regularly, but it really is a unique deck in my collection that I just really wouldn't want to get rid of. Like I feel like there is more depth to this deck that I have not found. It is helping me to slowly open to more of my ancestry and ancestral magic and things like that. So yeah, that's why it's on the list, because I just wouldn't want to get rid of it. So those are my top 10 mass market decks at this time. I imagine that it will continue to grow and evolve and change, but right now we're at about half of the same decks and half new decks. Some of these decks I still had during the list last year. I just like this one. I just hadn't used it enough to put it on the list. So Anyway, this has been my top 10 mass market deck list. If there's any decks here you want to hear me talk more about, let me know. Otherwise, like I said, I've talked about a lot of these decks in other videos, and I will try to link all of those below, but otherwise you can find them on the channel. I will see you in the next video. Bye.